Yeah, hello CPC friends. Today we are going to restore some old music data that I found on my old cassette tapes. So recently I went to Germany to my storage and I retrieved all these cassettes here from my storage, and so finally I have a chance to do something which I wanted to do for quite some time by now, and that is basically restore some of the music that I composed with my Tablature composer program that you are seeing here as early as 1986. So that program is probably the first recorded tablature composer for composing music for guitar players, right? Instead of the ordinary music score notation you have tablature. I played guitar back in the day, and I had a tablature songbook, and mostly for practicing for my guitar lessons, I created this program which would allow me to enter the tablature score, right, and then play it back. So we just listened to Bridge Over Troubled Water, of course, by Simon and Garfunkel. I was a huge fan of Simon and Garfunkel. I almost listened exclusively to Simon and Garfunkel in the early mid 80s, and only until in the late 80s I changed my musical taste a little bit. But yeah, so this piece of music was basically stored away on this old cassette, right? And you see it's not in good shape. And actually, I wasn't very wealthy, so sometimes I just recycled old cassette tapes that were used for music. Back in the day, you would have mixtapes and you would record music from the radio with your cassette recorder, right? And so I would just use those 60 or 90-minute tapes, which are actually quite unwieldy and too long, actually, and also quality-wise problematic for a data coder. And so I would just use those for programs, right, instead of using the more official computer program cassettes, which are usually like 15 or 30 minutes only. And of course, it was very important that you then kept a good record, basically, of what was on your individual tapes, right? So this is cassette 9 that we just looked at, and you see that I have the first version of Tab Composer here, and then the second version here on the tape, right? And all these songs I wrote specifically for this version, right? And then on the second side, there is the last song, and the most complex song I ever entered was this Bridge Over Troubled Water that we just listened to. And I tried restoring the song before, but failed because there were read errors on the tape. But with a lot of trial and error, cleaning the cassette head, etc., and the tape drive, I finally got it to work and was able to load it back in. Then there was another issue that I had a second version of this Tablature Composer program. In 1987, I finally could afford the ED1 disk drive, right? But before that, I only had cassette, and so I adapted my Tablature Composer program to work with a disk drive, and also have one essential feature that you see here, basically, that when you that you can actually, after you loaded it back from tape, right, or disk, that you can actually still edit it and see the tablature, right? So, and the previous version didn't have that, so I made the mistake there that I would store the direct note values for the sound, basically, but not the editor information, basically, right? So all these songs that I have for the older version were not compatible with the newer version of the Tablature Composer. So even after I restored these files, I wasn't able to play them back. So I actually needed to change the program a little bit so that the data format was converted between the old version and the new version, right? And yeah, so back in the day, I got my CPC in April 1985, and I think it wasn't until summer 1986 or 1987 that I finally got the disk drive. And for some reason, I did not bother to convert basically all these old songs that I still had on tape for the new version of Tablature Composer with a different data format, right? And and they were on tape, so I did not restore them and move them over to disk. So yeah, but now I thought, given that I spent a lot of time creating these songs back in the day, that it would be neat to actually restore these songs, because even though I can't claim credit for it, this Tablature Composer program is probably the first of its kind. So I'm not aware of any earlier version of this program, right? There were other musical composition programs for computers, also for the CPC, like the Music Studio from Rainbird, but they used like standard musical score notation and not tablature. And then the tab editors and programs for the PC, of course, they started showing up then in the mid 90s, late 90s, right? But this program existed in 1986, so I think it's the first of its kind, basically. And I tried selling it to some computer magazines which would publish type-in listings, but given that it was a fairly limited audience and that I didn't have a printer, so I had a handwritten manual and my handwriting was pretty terrible, so it got rejected and I tried twice, so it never got published. But yeah, I spent a lot of time creating the program and the three versions that I have. The latest one, like I said, as late as 1986. Or actually, given that I tried publishing this in 1986 and it has a 1986 date, I think I got the disk drive in summer 1986. So I had to work 14 months with a actually 16 months with a tape drive only, and this is when most of the songs were written for the old version of the Tablature Composer. But now it's time, given that I changed the read-in routines to also load the old format into the new Tablature Composer, it's time to get these old songs back from tape, right? So, and how do we do that, right? So let's actually go to this tape number 9. And the first song here on the second side is the Minuet. It's probably some Bach kind of minuet. And let's try to port this over from tape to disk. And back in the day, I wrote a machine code program for this. It was, I think, my first more complex machine code program. And let me just read it. So this is called TD Trans tape disk transformer. There it is. And yeah, I wrote this in 1987, so by then I was well versed in the Z80 machine language. I mostly learned this from the CPC International fanzine magazine, which had an assembly, Z80 assembly course. And I did not really have Maxim or any decent assembler, so the CPC International also had a Z80 basic assembler, and it worked well enough to allow me to create programs such as this. So let's load the program. Actually, it's not a program, it's a piece of data basically, right? It's the song data. Let's load this from tape. Might be a little bit hard to read. Let me change the brightness a bit of the recording. So there's the minuet, block 1 coming in. And this contains the header information of the file, so start address, file type, number of blocks, etc. And I think, if I remember correctly, each block is 2 kilobytes. So now we gotta determine a memory location where to load it in. So I'm loading it at 4000 hex now, and it continues loading the remaining blocks from tape. I think it only has 2 blocks. Takes a bit. If you listen closely, you can hear the digital data from the tape, feedback signal, and also that my tape drive was pretty bad at that time, so it was no longer transporting the tape stably. So it would basically speed up and down. It would make these whirling sounds because it couldn't really keep a constant speed anymore. It's kind of a miracle that with that I was still able to continue to work and save and load programs somewhat reliably. But like I said, it was very difficult to retrieve this 9 blocks long bridge over troubled water song from tape because of that. Also bad tape quality, and then the defect that I had in my tape recorder back in the day. So it's loaded in. Now we can simply, first of all, we can check that there's enough space on the tape disk catalog. And you see, I already did that once before, manuet.moose. So, but let's do that again. So copy, and then now it's copying the program to disk automatically now. And of course, I have the codec drive here. And there's a second piece of data for each song, which we need to load in. And let's also load that and transfer this as well. Again, we load this in at 4000 and then copy. Good. And yeah, now we can exit the program. Back to DOS. And there we see the files that have been created now. Like I said, I did this before, so there is already manuet mass music. And when we created this again, it created a backup file of the old program, right? So now we can have a look what mstors allows you to do. Now we can actually maybe erase the old one, right? And yeah, now we should be able to load this with the Tablature Composer. And loading takes a little bit longer now because of, like I said, these songs were written for the old version of Tablature Composer, which did not have the editor data in the data. So now when I'm reading this in, I actually need to convert the data, and from the musical tone data that's in the file, we are going to identify the right tablature positions, right? Manuet. So most of the time is now spent converting the old data format into the new data format that we need for the new version of Tablature Composer. But it's not a long song, so it doesn't take that long. So the data is actually coming from the GoTag, which is drive A, right? I have an ABBA drive A and B switch, so I can boot from the GoTag. So I modified the disk interface here with some switches that allows you to select the DOS, Parados, or mSTOS, or the EBA switch, right? So there it is. Let's play it black. that was that. And this is how I created all the musical soundtracks for my basic games back in the day, mostly with this program, right? Because it has one trick up its sleeve, so to speak, and this is it can create a basic playback program. And so here in the help menu, just try to remember myself how this worked. So if you do S basically, then I think it'll ask you if it shall create a basic playback program for standalone playback. And let's just call it test. Gotta select the other disk image again here. And yeah, let's say 600 should be enough. I defined some keys here, basically function keys, so that the program can be restarted with basic commands. So okay, yeah, so we save it as a basic program. I'm not sure if that still works, but so the first line number of the basic program is 10, and the distance between increment is 10. So that's the basic program it's creating now. Let's see if that actually works. I'm not sure if I adjusted the internal data format. Oh yes, I did, because the conversion happens during read-in from of the music file. So it's creating all the data statements with the note values, right? The tones for the different channels, 1, 2, 3. That's going to take a bit. Yeah, it's always intriguing to see how slow these old computers were back in the day and how much patience we had, right? If things don't happen in milliseconds these days, we get impatient. Back in the day, we had to wait for minutes and hours sometimes for a computation to finish. Yeah, so with regard to this program and the claim that it's the first of its kind, the first Tablature composer ever written, right? So if you know of an earlier program than 1986, let me know. Also, there's a Wikipedia page that lists Tablature composers, Tablature editors in the musical software category, and I put in a paragraph there with a link to the GitHub repo for TabComp, Tablature Composer CPC, claiming it's the first one, and I also have the evidence, right, like the handwritten manual and the letter of rejection, and that I try to send it in for publication to the CPC International, and it got rejected, of course, because of the poor manual. All this evidence I have online, right? I'm not making this up, but obviously that's not hard evidence in the sense if it wasn't published anywhere, then it is basically original research in Wikipedia terms. That means it doesn't count basically as the first program of its kind, because basically nobody, of course, other than me, ever used it for anything, and nobody knew about it. Well, I mean, people knew about it, right, because I tried to publish it and it wasn't published, but anyhow, that doesn't count, right? But I'm interested in the history of computer music software, and if you know of any program that's earlier than 1986 and that fits that category, Tablature composer, right, Tablature editor, then please let me know. So then I retract the claim from Wikipedia that this is the first of its kind. Well, it's going to be retracted and erased at some point anyhow, right? As I said, because it's flagged as original research and it doesn't count as verifiable. So let's have a look at if it created the program now. I think I called it test, right? Yes, and test is not BAS for basic, but BAL for basic lead. Basic song, lead is song in German, right? So let's see if that actually works, conversion. And for my game The Wrath of the CPC, for example, I have a lot of music there that's all composed in that way and saved in that way. There you go, that worked. And how about we try one more song? So eventually I'm going to convert all of the songs and put them on a disk image on the Tablature Composer GitHub repo for download. So then there's some software, some musical pieces that come with it. And let's convert one more with tardy trance. So according to my index here, on the next should be Wilson's Wild, which I'm not sure what that is. That sounds like an Irish, British, whatever piece of folk music. Apparently I must have liked it enough so that I would choose to enter it into Tablature Composer and save it. Or maybe I was forced by my guitar teacher back in the day to play it. Unfortunately, I don't have the songbook anymore, or I might have it actually in my storage in Germany still. But yeah, I only go there every 3 years. And here, because I live in California, in Palo Alto, since 2010. So, but yeah, it's kind of fun actually, and also intriguing that you can restore software from tapes which are now almost 40 years old, right? Especially from a tape that sounds like this. Listen to the uneven pitch, right? So Wilson's Wild is loading. And by the way, this is my greenie, the green monitor, GT64, but I also have the wonderful CTM644 color monitor. And back in the day, I was lucky enough to have the color monitor because I wanted to play games, of course, and I was into graphics. But the greenie is much better, of course, and more eye-friendly for serious applications and word processing and programming, of course, right? Because you have 80 columns with a much sharper picture, basically, right? Because it doesn't have the washy. This is basically a television tube. Okay, so let's copy that. It might actually be a problematic file name or not. Well, that's good. Now for the second part. So the first part, first file is basically the note data, right? And the second part gives you the repetitions and other meta information. This is why this is a much smaller file. Okay, we also know this is 4000 already loaded, and now simply copy it. Good. So if we now look at the disk, this is something I had not copied before. We see that there's Wilson's and Wilson's bug, and that's because the first one got overwritten. I did not specify the extension, so the bug is now the music data file with 6 kilobytes, and the second file, the small file, is the one without extension. So when we go back to mstors now, we need to rename the file, and so Wilson's, was it Wilson's? Yes. So The old name is Wilson's. No, where is the apostrophe actually? Wilson's. And the new one, no, actually we want backup file to be the music file. We have to change the extension to mus and then rename old and new. And of course it's new and then old. Alright, good. So now tab comp should be able to play that back. I can't recall the song. It's the first time that I'm listening to it in 40 years, or almost 40 years. So I'm curious. Let's load it. That might take a little bit longer because I think it's also a little bit larger than the minuet that we just listened to. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going through all my cassettes basically and all the programs that I still have on them that I wrote like a long time ago and try to put them on disk and save them. And I remember when I got rid of my CPC in, must have been 1998 or so, then by then I used an Amiga and of course a PC as well. So I think I got rid of my disks basically, so I might have actually converted most of the and saved most of the cassette files, but then I got got rid of most of my disks, so luckily I kept the cassettes. So let's listen to that. Well, what a nice song, and yeah, so that's it for now. I hope you found that interesting, and check out the Tablature Composer GitHub repo. I'll also put that in the notes under this video, so you can check it out if you own a CPC. And yeah, until next time.